We're going to start out with a quick overview of the DT Swiss 29er XMM 120 fork. It starts out with the tapered steer tube with the big oversized extra stiff mounting. It has a real nice hard coating on the fork stanchions, super heavy duty fork brace, real nice graphics, good looking fork overall. I want to talk about your dampening controls. The top blue knob is your compression dampening, and it makes a nice clicking. You can repeat your settings, dial in 3 clicks, get 3 clicks. And then the lower knob is your rebound, and you can feel little notches when you turn that, and you could probably count those. The next feature is your air fill valve, and that's where you put your shock pump on there and pump it up to set the proper amount of sag for your weight. And we did some interesting experiments with this setup. At first I was using 1 inch of sag and really felt that the small hits were very harsh, and we changed it to 1.5 inches of sag. And the thing that I noticed was the harshness did not change. And I do use some pneumatics in my work, my real job. And basically the way pneumatics works is the square inches of your piston, the pounds per square inch air pressure that's in your shock, and then the load you put on your fork, which is your body weight. It's all going to equal out to the same pressure, because it's all math. The pounds per square inch pushing up and the pounds pushing down is going to equalize. So changing the sag, all you're doing is changing the suspension height. You're really not making the shock ride softer or harsher. You're making it ride lower or higher. The light bulb kind of came on about that, because we were really trying to make it ride smoother on the small hits and roots, and we thought if we put a lot of softness in the air spring and then dial up some of the dampening, that we'd get the desired results, but it didn't work out that way. Okay, it has nice control knobs, but what I've found, especially for myself, I'm a lighter weight, 140-pound rider, that most forks are designed for the average rider, maybe 180 pounds, maybe 200 pounds, and the hydraulic dampening controls are way too stiff for my body weight, and I just can't seem to tune in a good ride. I mean, I've tried 1 inch, 1.5 inches, 1 3/4 of sag on this fork, and still the small hits were harsh. I know the instruction manual says that you have to break it in for 20 hours. I definitely rode it for more than 20 hours, and I think all that does is get you used to the harshness, and you finally deal with it. But riding this fork, I could feel it in my wrists and in my forearms, especially on rooty, rocky, small hit type of trail. Now, on the other hand, on smooth machine cut root-free trails, this fork is totally awesome. You can tell how smooth it actuates, and it's very linear. And I guess that's the weird thing about it. You know, just riding along, I'd keep setting my travel indicating O-ring to see what I'm doing, and it'd be at 1/2 to 3/4 travel, and I'd be there. I don't even know what I hit to move it that far. But what I did find is on a lot of the G-outs and stuff, I would totally use all the travel, get it all the way to the top here. And in the big G outs, I can definitely bottom this fork. So to try to prevent it from bottoming, I could dial up the compression dampening, but it's all catch-22. I dial that up to control the huge impacts, and then it's way too harsh on the low stuff. So I can never get to a happy medium on this fork, and I'm pretty sure it's all about my body weight and thinking that if it had a little bit thinner oil in it, maybe it would come together for me. Okay, the next thing I want to show is the DT Swiss thru axle quick release. The thru axle design is the only way to go on a modern fork. It's a hollow axle that goes through this fork leg and screws into your far fork leg. And you just screw it in or unscrew it. And the DT Swiss has this ratcheting quick release, so you can tighten it or loosen it and then park the handle in a position where it won't get snagged on anything. I always like to put my handle up like that. But I noticed while I was riding on this was that it would turn and no telling where it'd end up. And on sometimes it was ending up like that. And that's definitely a no-no. If you come along and snag some brush or vine in there, that could make for an exciting right turn. And apparently this fork is defective because the nut in the opposite leg is not locked in place. It just turns. So besides the problem of it turning, there's no easy way to hold it, to tighten it. It's almost like you need some kind of special spanner to go in here and hold this, because it just wants to rotate when you're trying to tighten. And this whole nut piece turns here. We had to like take some needle nose or something and get in there and hold that to tighten the skewer. I know on my Fox shock it's a captured nut, and you can adjust where it lands so your quick release ends up where you want it, tucked in, which is not needed with the DT Swiss with the ratchet handle on it. So they could just have a fixed nut in there. So we're trying to get to the bottom of why that turns like that, and whether that's normal, and whether there's supposed to be a special tool or what. Overall, this is a pretty impressive fork. Unfortunately, I'm a little disappointed with the quick release issue and the ride quality issue for the lighter weight rider.